Boys, today we got one of the most stacked UFC fight cards this year. We got Burns versus Morales and an absolutely stacked fight card. I'm just kidding. This is a big load of shit. This is one of the worst. This whole month is arguably just hot trash. Let's start off. We're going to do some rare predictions. Who I think is going to win and how. And let's just get this over with. We got the prelims. Women's strawweight division. Tisha Pennington. Luana Pinheiro. I don't give a fuck, to be honest. You know, Tisha Pennington, good everywhere. We're going to speed run this shit. 29-28, Tisha Pennington. Who cares? Moving down, flyweight division. This could be a fun fight. We got Young Sung Park taking on Carlos Hernandez. Park is a good grappler with a pressure-heavy style. He's good at finding openings on the feet. He can take it to the ground if needed to. He has some dangerous submission threats, and the only thing is he can be overly patient at times on the feet when his striking isn't working out, and his takedown defense isn't that great either. Where Carlos Hernandez is a very well-rounded fighter, good BJJ, some dangerous submission threats. He has good accuracy, good volume, but he doesn't have the most power in the division. And, you know, at times he can look a little bit uncomfortable and, you know, worried on the feet. His striking defense can be a little bit of a problem, but, you know, he has that big old Mexican head with a decent chin, so he's not out here getting flatlined every fight. But I think Park can avoid the ground game. He can keep it on the feet, standing, where Carlos is just going to look very uncomfortable. And I think his big Mexican blockhead will be able to keep him from getting KO'd this fight. 29-28 decision win. Let's go down. Another banger on this card. Women's strawweight division. Elise Reed, Denise Gomez. I mean, how can you guys not be excited for this fight? I can't remember the last time I just wasn't ecstatic to watch a Elise Reed fight. But you know, Elise Reed looks like, is it just me, or does Elise Reed not look like one of these high school English teachers who just can't wait to read that book, that, you know, that famous book that has that one word in it? You know, if you know, you know. She looks like she's gonna be in here like, sorry kids, you know, it's just a word, and just pronounces it with such anger. That's what Elise Reed looks like, but it is what it is. I don't really care to break this shit down. Elise Reed is a win one, lose one fighter, and she won her last fight, so I'm going Denise Gomez. I think it's gonna be a like against the cage elbow TKO. Mark that shit down. And you know, the MMA gods are just telling me how this shit's gonna end. Elbow TKO up against the fence. Let's keep moving down. Women's bantamweight division. Another crazy fight. Luana Santos. I can't remember the last time I wasn't excited to watch this girl. And Tanera Lisba. I don't even know how to pronounce this girl's name. You know, I've literally watched pretty much every UFC fight in the past years. It's been years. I have watched hours and hours and days of specifically UFC, and I swear I have never seen either of these girls fight, but it is what it is. I don't care too much to break this shit down. I think Tanera is the better striker. She's going to be way better on the feet. She's a two-time Muay Thai world champion. She's going to be better on the feet. Her grappling's okay to stay on the feet and not get taken down. 29-28 decision win because it's women's MMA at the end of the day. Let's move down. Lightweight division. Jared Gordon, Thiago Moises. Gordon is a high-volume striker who is always trying to move forward. He'll mix in some takedowns. He's pretty much in every fight, he's fairly well-rounded, and he doesn't have, you know, the most power on the feet. And in his last few fights, he has struggled on the back foot, and you know, his record's a little bit better than what it actually is. He's been on the wrong side of a few decisions lately, but it is what it is. Thiago Moises, on the other hand, is a UFC vet at this point, you know, a black belt in BJJ, fairly well-rounded, but he primarily is a grappler with one of these like constantly calm fight styles. Like, it doesn't look like he even cares to be in there. And once he gets shit to the ground, he's looking for that submission. He's looking to advance the position. He has some good fast hands, some pretty dynamic kicks, good fight IQ, but also he doesn't have the most volume in the world. And his takedown defense is a little bit concerning, but I think this is a razor close fight, and the winner is going to be who has the better fight IQ. And I think Thiago Moises, better fight IQ. He'll be able to adjust mid-round. Going a split decision, 29-28, Thiago Moises. Let's keep moving down. I believe this is the main event of these prelims. Gabe Green taking on Mateus Camilo. I believe this is this dude's first fight in the UFC, but I don't know. I've only been watching, you know, this shit every Saturday for as long as I can remember at this point. But, you know, I'm pretty sure it's his first time in the UFC. But Gabe Green is a forward pressure, high volume striker with some good KO power and some dangerous submission threats. He has fought a lot of high level fighters in the UFC, but he can get hit a little bit too much and is very inconsistent, almost being like a win one lose one type of fighter, where Mateos is a pretty well-rounded fighter himself. He has dangerous KO power and submission threats, and this dude has very little, high level experience. Like I said, I don't think this dude has been in the UFC. If not, he's been fighting a bunch of cans, and he does have some holes in his grappling defense, but at the end of the day, Gabe Green hasn't fought in like 2 years. Plus, he used to be at welterweight. He's coming down to lightweight, and he was a pretty built like welterweight. I don't know if this is gonna be a good weight cut for him. I just don't see this moving very good for Gabe Green. I'm going first round KO, being way too skinny out there, way too dehydrated. I wouldn't be surprised if this dude misses weight. But let's get into this main card now, featherweight division. Julian Erosa, Melquizael Costa, pronunciations on point, but Erosa is a pretty well-rounded fighter who can finish the fight by KO, submission, as well as he has a pretty high output, and he has a pretty decent size and reach advantage in most of his fights. He's 6'1" and has a 75-inch reach. However, this dude, if you look at, not recently, he's been on a pretty good tear recently. I think he's on like a 3-fight win streak, but if this dude loses, it's usually by early finish. He loves to get finished early. Pause, that was crazy, but he's been looking good recently, but this dude's 35 years old. His endurance and his performance in general have been on the decline recently, which is crazy to say because he is, like I said, on a 3-fight win streak. But Costa, on the other hand, is also a very well-rounded fighter with some pretty creative, dynamic striking. He has good grappling skills and he's fairly strong for this division as well. His takedowns, though, aren't the best, but he has some good power, and he usually just uses his power for the takedowns more than technique. He has good hands, solid technique. He can mix up combinations very well. And this dude's on a run recently. He's like the new Kevin Holland. I was going to say something like, he's a Kevin Holland if he was a Dalmatian. But then I saw that he was like bullied in school and was called a Dalmatian a lot or something like that. So, just pretend I didn't say that. But he's the new Kevin Holland. He's on a run right now. And, the only concern is because he's fighting like every single month, I'm worried that there's, it's a little bit too often. But I think Costa is better everywhere. And the only concern, again, is the activity. I'm going first round KO. Again, Julian Erosa loves to get finished early. Costa's going to go out here and finish him early. No pause whatsoever. But middleweight division, Dustin Stolfus taking on Ruslan Roozemboyev. Again, pronunciations on point. Let's go down to Dustin. He's a fairly well-rounded fighter with decent power, some dangerous submission threats, and he has a pretty strong offensive wrestling. He uses his takedown to control his opponents, neutralize any of the striking threats, but he is one of the most inconsistent fighters in middleweight. I'm not gonna lie. He has some lackluster striking and submission defense, especially against high-level opponents. And it's mainly because this dude's, first off, his head movement, zero, brother. His footwork, zero, brother. And he's too hittable. He can get taken down. And Ruslan Roozemboyev he's a problem. I'm not gonna lie. He's very, very good. He's a good grappler. He has an aggressive fighting style with some good wrestling. Just he hasn't needed to show it in the UFC. He has decent striking with some very good power, and he can get a finish by KO. He can get a finish by submission. He has a cardio to go all 3 rounds. He's also good at using his reach pretty well, and he's pretty big for the division. He freaking fought, who was it? It was, I'm thinking of right now, the dude with the small ass head. Joaquin Buckley, there it is. He fought Buckley, but he fought Buckley at 170. I have no idea how he made 170. He's a true middleweight, but his fight style can also leave him open for some counters and takedowns, but I think he's better everywhere than Stolfus. And mark my words, if you're listening to this, mark my words, I'm about to be fucking Mystic Mac right now. The uppercut will be there for Roozemboyev. I think it's going to land. I think he's going to get a KO here, but the uppercut is there. I'm going Roozemboyev round 2 KO. Let's get into lightweight now. Lightweight, Sodiq Yusuff taking on Marin Santos. Now, Yusuff is a pretty high output and good accurate striker with good power, good grappling, and takedown defense because he's pretty built. I'm not going to lie. He's pretty built. He's pretty strong, but he is moving up to lightweight from featherweight, so I don't know if that strength is still going to be there. He has been on a little bit of a skid recently, but he's he's moving up to lightweight, so hopefully that's a good thing for him. But he's also a little bit injury prone, which is never a good thing when picking one of these fighters to win, where Santos is a pretty powerful striker with a good reach, and he uses it very well, to be honest. He has good takedown defense, striking output, good shot selection, and he has good fight IQ, you know, avoiding any unnecessary risk. It can be a little bit boring at times, but he has good fight IQ, and he's still very unproven in the UFC. He has a very wide base, which is good for, you know, his balance and helping him defend takedowns, but on the ground, and specifically the submission game, is pretty limited. I think personally this is also a very close matchup, but lightweight might be a good move for Youssef, and I think this is going to be Santos's biggest step by a mile. This is a huge step up for Santos, but I think it might be a good move for him. I don't think Santos is garbage by any mean, but Youssef has some very high level UFC experience. I just think his experience and hopefully, you know, lighter man skill, all that bullshit. I'm going 29-28 Youssef. Let's get into the fucking co-main event. This is a co-main event. This is insane. Rodolfo Bellato taking on Paul Craig. The fact that this is a co-main event makes me want to kill myself, but it is what it is. Bellato is a heavy-handed, like, I'm not gonna lie, Bellato, like I said, I watch this shit every Saturday. I don't know much about this boy Bellato. Like, he's a very forgettable guy. I'm not gonna lie, but he's decent. It's not like he's just an absolute can, but he's very, very forgettable. You know, I think he's only had one, maybe two fights in the UFC, but he's a pretty heavy-handed grappler with a forward pressure style, and he loves to throw nothing but bombs. He likes to get into scraps, but he also kind of wants to get the fight to the ground where he has good control and dangerous submissions. He also can look very stiff and slow at times. Like I said, he's new to the UFC. The fact that this is a co-main event is insane, but Paul Craig, do we need to break this dude down? He's an elite submission threat with, you know, like a killer be killed mentality out there. He's going for those submissions unless you put him to sleep. And this dude's chin is practically non-existent. And he's a sub or bust type of fighter. He ain't subbing my boy Bellato. I know Bellato, and he's not getting submitted by Paul Craig. I'm going round 1 KO. Easiest pick of my life for my boy Bellato. Let's get into this main event now. The only fight that has some implications moving forward. And even then, you know, it's not even that much. It's such a sad matchup. Gilbert Burns, Michael Morales. And it's sad because, you know, Gilbert Burns was such a good company man, stepping in short notice. I'll go fight the boogeyman, you know, Chimaev, all that shit like that. And now they're using his name for fucking Spider-Man out here. So Gilbert Burns, you know, an elite BJJ black belt with some pretty powerful, but at the end of the day, very limited strikes. Like, he loves just to throw overhands. He has names on names on names on his resume, but win or lose, he still has all that experience. But at the end of the day, my boy is 38 years old, and I don't care what you say, he's on the decline as well. Plus, his chin has never been that great, and with the age, it's not getting any better, where Michael Morales is currently an undefeated fighter. First off, the undefeated fighters have been getting, you know, not to sound dramatic or anything, but have been getting R-worded all year. So I don't know how confident you are to pick another undefeated fighter, but my boy Durinho might have a chance here. But he's an undefeated fighter, 79-inch reach with decent power, decent takedown defense. He's 25 years old, you know, and he's just going to be getting better and better every time we see him in the octagon. His submission game is pretty limited, and he also has a tendency to get hit a little bit too much because of his upright stance. But Father Time, undefeated, undisputed. I'm going round 3 KO for Michael Morales. It's sad to say, but it is what it is. But don't be surprised if my boy Durinho comes out here and takes this dude's O, because like I've been saying, undefeated fighters have been getting ran through this year. But yeah, that is every single fight on this fight card. A pretty lackluster fight card. It is what it is. I think tomorrow or the next day, I'm going to have a UFC Perth card because we need that shit ASAP. Yeah, thank you guys for watching to the end of the video, and I will see you guys in my next video.